Well, after a very messy and convoluted 7th season, can the Vampire Diaries finally fix itself in its final go-around? Hey guys, remember the season premiere, the final season of the Vampire Diaries, Season 8, Episode 1, Hello Brother, holy shit, Season 8, I honestly can't believe this show has been going for 8 seasons, and I can't believe this is the final season, honestly. The Vampire Diaries was one of the first shows that I ever watched, like, and I mean regular shows, like, I used to watch just Disney and Nickelodeon shows. The Vampire Diaries was one of the first 2 shows I ever watched. It's always going to be special to me. But if you guys can imagine, I really was not looking forward to this premiere. And can you really blame me? I mean, last season wasn't terrible, but it just really did not work. And I think it was very unmemorable, just very underwhelming, and just overall very, very messy. And I mean, it's not exactly their fault. I mean, I get it that they were given a very hard task, to be able to continue the show without the main stars a lot. And I think that they were trying to do a little bit too much last season. They were definitely trying to figure out how do we move on, and did it work? No, it really didn't work at all. As you guys know, really was not a fan of it. But I was giving the benefit of doubt. I said, all right, maybe Season 7 was just a misfire. Maybe they were just trying to figure out what to do, because the episodes that were strong were really strong last season. It was very rare that we had a very strong episode, but when they were good, damn were they good. So I really was thinking, okay, maybe that was just a misfire. Maybe this season will get things back on track, and I was worried about that. But I have to say, based on this first episode, I really do feel that they are, in fact, getting things back on track. I'm surprised, but I think the fact that they know this is the final season is getting them to, focus more on things, and they clearly are running out of ideas, but I like the way they're using what they did here. They're definitely slowing things down, and overall, this was a really strong premiere. I really did enjoy this episode overall, but let's just get into it, because this really seems like, from this season at least, is what I want last season to be. I mean, not a lot happened last season. Yes, there were things that happened, but we'll get into that. Now, let me just say right off the bat that I really did love the way this episode starts off, because it pretty much is a direct homage to the first episode of this entire series, which I will admit wasn't that great. I really was not a huge fan of Season 1. I thought it was quite cheesy. It got better as it went on, but especially the beginning, it really was not that great. I didn't watch a ton of Season 1, just what I saw was really cheesy, especially compared to what we got in, like, Seasons 3 through 5. Probably when the show was at its best, really. The show kind of peaked after that, but basically, I really did love the way that this started, because we see, you remember in the first scene, this entire show started out with an anonymous couple, meeting the vampires and seeing what was going on there, and this is very similar to what happened there. The difference is, we start off, we see that, we basically see that there's this young couple driving through the fog, just like the first episode, and I really did not like this young couple. I thought they were very intolerable, and I understood why they did what they did with them. But thank God they killed them off, because they were really hard to watch. But before they somehow managed to swerve around Damon, who's staying in the middle of the road. But sadly for this couple, Enzo's just a few yards away, and when they hit him, their fates are sealed. And there's some really meta lines in this scene where they talk about how they're glad the vampire craze is over, and then Enzo and Damon talk about how it's time to say goodbye to staying in the middle of the road trick. I mean, they clearly know that this is a little bit silly, and that's something I did like, is that while this episode is very serious, there are points where they don't take it too seriously, and I think that's something they actually are doing pretty well here. So Damon and Enzo drive their latest victims to their favorite slaughterhouse, and we get a bit of explanation as to what's happening inside their minds. Essentially, they're actually slaves who are basically forced to kill to this creature that's controlling them, and it's their job to bring the worst of humanity to the warehouse, which in itself is extremely interesting. I really do love this plot overall, knowing that they're forced to bring them to the warehouse and that they really don't have a choice over this. That in itself is very interesting. Damon and Enzo wouldn't just kill for the hell of it, so I like that we now know what's going on there. And very early on, there's no question of what's going on. We know very well. So after asking their victims about their dirtiest deeds, they decide the male shall be fed to whatever it is in that bloody water, while the woman gets to die a respectable death. Enzo ends up biting her, and that is the way that the season starts. And I thought that was a really good way to start things off. We see that these have been fed, they're off to get some sleep, and we now know what Enzo and Damon have been doing. And yes, they're leaving this very dark life, but you understand why they have to do that. I mean, this is what they're doing to survive. They don't really have any other choice, and you kind of understand why they gotta do what they gotta do. So definitely, I thought that was a really great to start things off. But then we see back in Mystic Falls, Caroline and Stefan are having sex, and I don't really know what's going on with them there. If Caroline is with Stefan, because isn't she still with Alaric? I mean, definitely, I can't really figure out what's going on there. But Bonnie, we had a scene that's very similar to the beginning of last season, where, Caroline wrote that diary entry to Elena. Well, this time it's Bonnie that's writing it. And Bonnie is probably at her most emotional point yet this season, because think about it, she now has lost her powers. She's lost Enzo. The only thing she really has is Caroline and Stefan. That's all she has. Her best friend is gone. Her best friend is trapped with Enzo. Enzo's gone, and well, Damon and Bonnie won't really be on good terms in the same way again. I mean, we know what Damon did to Bonnie last season, so things have kind of changed there. But at the same time, Bonnie, really, you do feel bad for here. She tells her best friends that they're no closer to finding Damon and Enzo than they were. And when the string on her guitar breaks, she flashes back to a time when Enzo was actually around to fix her broken strings, which was a really well done scene, because one of my problems with last season is that they really want us to endorse this relationship between Enzo and Bonnie, but we never really felt anything, and it's because we didn't really get to see a ton of them. So I like that they actually did show them in this scene. It made sense why they had to do that. I mean, obviously, we didn't see a ton of them last season at all, really. They were only in a couple scenes, so I thought they did a good job with us seeing, why Bonnie cares so much about Enzo, and that gets us to feel for her. That was a really good way to do that. Bonnie's dealing, with losing the man she loved, and I thought overall that was a very strong scene. I really did like the way that stuff was done there. Now, Caroline, we hear about Caroline. She's concerned about what's going on with this nanny and everything. Basically, Lark is now, running the armory, and he feels that her nanny is, she feels that her nanny is way too hot, and Caroline's worried that he could be susceptible to falling for this nanny and possibly leaving her, which was interesting overall. And basically, we see after this, which I thought this was interesting to see, but basically, Alaric manages the armory's excavation. He learns that the walls in the cave can be passed through, but only if a person's hearing and vision are blocked completely. That's apparently how Damon and Enzo were able to leave the cave, since there are no other exits, which again, very interesting, very small detail, but just very interesting overall. I like the way that we found that out. I thought it was overall interesting to find out there. But I did like the way that started out. But Caroline and Stefan, she's off to work at the news station, while Stefan and Bonnie head to the latest crime scene, because they do get a call about what happened, to the body and everything. So, for the first time in their search for Damon and Enzo, a body was left behind, and that gives Stefan hope. He feels that, okay, if a body's there, they're going to lead to it. Bonnie, on the other hand, is kind of done with hope. She promises not to give up for Stefan's sake, but when it comes to hope, hope hurts. And you understand, I mean, Bonnie has literally been put through the ringer this entire show. If there's any character that's gone through shit the most, it's Bonnie. I mean, think of everything Bonnie's gone through. She's died, like 5 times now? She dies almost in every season. She sacrificed her powers. She lost her best friend. Now she salvaged relationships. She's now lost her boyfriend. I mean, Bonnie really has gone screwed over, and I can really understand why Bonnie has lost that hope. But Stefan having that hope, that is something that I really do like about his character. Last season, I found to be very bland. They didn't do a ton with him, and this season, it seems like they are going to give him that hope, and I think that hope is really what's going to propel a lot of this season and really going to make me root for Stefan in the way they want me to. Enzo then returns to the slaughterhouse after dumping the woman's body to find Damon reading 50 Shades of Grey, which I thought was actually pretty funny to see. But we realize that Damon, in doing all this killing and, going through all the shit he did last year, he's turned off his humanity. He's turned off his humanity switch, which I understand why he had to do this. I mean, I know that a lot of people get annoyed when characters do this, but it makes sense. I mean, if he's killing in this way, we know that Damon wouldn't actually do this if he has humanity. So he basically was forced to do it, because again, that is the only way they're able to survive. If they were not killing, they'd probably be fed to the master. That's what would probably happen to them. So basically, he's perfectly content to kill people during the day and read about Christian and, Anastasia Steele at night. Enzo, on the other hand, is still holding on to his humanity, even after Damon kicks him into the pit and let him get up close and personal with whatever that thing is. So there's a reason why he's keeping it in. I think it's mainly because of Bonnie, but we don't really know. I thought overall that was very interesting to see. So I really did like the way that was done. I think Enzo and Damon overall is one of the most compelling things we're getting this season so far. But at the news station, we get something that we didn't really see a ton of last season. That's Caroline and her job. I mean, last season, Caroline was in the middle of two things. Either she was pregnant and she was dealing with that, or she was in this love triangle with Stefan and Valerie, and that didn't really go anywhere. Just like most things last season, most seasons didn't really go a lot of places. But now that we're done with that, we're starting to get to see Caroline as a mother, and I like seeing that here. I thought it was overall really interesting to see. They did try to do it last season, just there was so much going on that they didn't really get to focus in it, and I like they're doing that here. So at the news station, Caroline tries to figure out what Virginia St. John told Enzo about the vault before he went to get Damon, and while Stefan and Bonnie run into a bit of luck, because obviously she had to tell him something. She doesn't know what, but definitely was something that she had to have tell him. So Stefan and Bonnie run into a bit of luck at the crime scene. The cop shows them the car that appears to have hit a mountain lion, which again is another callback to season 1. I didn't get that, but apparently it's a callback to season 1, which I thought was interesting to see. Basically, we see that he ends up, using compelling, one of the detectives to learn more about the girl that Enzo killed, because obviously he knows that Enzo and Damon were definitely behind this. He doesn't know what capacity, but he knows they're definitely behind it. And when Bonnie realized the one was actually strangled with a guitar string, and after Caroline does some research, she finds out that a nearby creek ran red with blood not long ago. So with that, Stefan's off to check out the slaughterhouse that reportedly had drainage issues, which overall I thought was interesting to see the way that was all done. Again, we don't really know what's going on with that, but I thought that was overall very interesting, and I like getting into this character of Virginia St. John because, they believe that she has the answers as to what escaped from the vault. So they find a vault at the end of the tunnel and ancient artifacts and gold beyond it, and basically Bonnie picks up on clues leading straight to Enzo, and Caroline helps lead them to nearby slaughterhouse, as I said. So at the home, the nanny preps dinner for the girls. When someone ends up breaking into the house, we see Celine is on the phone with Caroline, that's the nanny, who rushes home after learning her girls are in danger. And like I said, I really did like seeing Caroline as that motherly figure in this episode. And I really did believe that she was, in fact, a mother here. I thought they did a good job with that. But back in the tunnel, Lark's trying to stay safe for his daughters when he and his two helpful interns find a door, and behind the door is actually a bunch of ancient artifacts that are somehow perfectly preserved, or as Rick calls it, they find a geek gold mine. So he turns on, basically we see after this, Caroline, like I said, she gets a call from Celine, and it takes about 60 seconds for things to go south. Virginia St. John shows up, slits Celine's throat, but Caroline stops Virginia before she can get to her daughter. Celine is killed, and I didn't think Celine was going to last that long. It just didn't really seem like it was going to go anywhere, so I'm glad they kill her off. I didn't want this ridiculous arc with Caroline being jealous of Celine and whatnot, but Caroline then feeds Celine her blood, compels her to take the girls to get ice cream, and alone with Virginia, Caroline wants answers, but all she gets is Virginia telling her that it has come for her daughters. And we don't know who it is, but before Virginia bites out her own tongue, bleeds out in Caroline's living room, which again, very creepy stuff, and I like that was actually genuinely creepy. Like, they actually are going in some pretty shockingly graphic directions, which I like seeing. I think the show is good when it actually relies on horror, and they did a pretty good job with that here. I like the way that was overall done. But definitely that was obviously very hard to watch, the way that that went down and everything that happened there. But basically, Bonnie tries to figure out why they found candle wax on the female victim. She heads to the slaughterhouse where Stefan is actually reliving the moment that Damon re-entered his life in the pilot. And that is why this episode's called Hello Brother, which, if you guys don't know, every episode of the season is actually going to be named after a quote from season 1, which is kind of tedious, I think, but it's also kind of interesting because it's a callback to that and showing how far the relationship has come. Because, I mean, in the original, if you remember the original pilot, Stefan wanted absolutely nothing to do with Damon. He felt Damon being there was a living nightmare. He wanted nothing to do with his brother. But now, knowing his brother's in trouble and him doing anything he can to save him, it really to show how far these characters have come, and I think they did a good job with that here. So, we see Stefan quickly figures out that Damon has flipped his humanity switch, or as Damon puts it, he ripped it out on the wall, and according to Damon, he's officially done with the illusion of a heroic life. He's seen how this ends, and his humanity can't save him from the literal hell that's waiting for him, and you honestly understand why Damon had turned off his humanity switch. I mean, he tried to be human last year, and it just didn't really work. He's tired of living a human life. He wants to live a life really with no consequences, and it's not going to happen, obviously, but that's what he's trying to do, and he tells Stefan to walk out of here with his hero hair intact, impact and never come back. But Stefan obviously is not leaving him. He feels he still needs fixing, and again, I really do love that relation between these two brothers. And I think, unlike Season 6, which tried to be focusing on these two brothers, this season already succeeding better at that, and I can't wait to see where this is going to go. So Bonnie then arrives just in time to hear Stefan tell his brother to think about Elena, which is the one thing that kept Damon human last season. He kept Elena in his thoughts, but as we saw last season, it kind of destroyed him. So I'm really not surprised that Damon is putting Elena behind him, saying that, it doesn't matter to him anymore. He sees that every bad decision he's ever made has sealed his fates, and that's just kind of how it is. He feels that he has no happy ending, that he's done everything that he could, and that he is going to live without consequences until the day he dies, essentially. And he says that her great beyond is a silently happier one than his, and he feels that there is no version of his end where he ends up living. And I think it's probably going to end that way. I don't see Damon living past the season, unfortunately. As much as I like his character, I don't see him living past the season. It's very sad to see, but again, it makes sense. After all the shit that Damon has been through the entire show, it makes sense why Damon feels, he just doesn't really have much of a reason to live anymore. Much of a reason, to be human anymore. You understand that, because whenever he does, he's, screwed over. So Stefan realizes that Damon's not going to leave with him. He stabs his brother. When Bonnie says she's not leaving without Enzo, she gives Enzo and Damon enough time to retaliate. Enzo tells him to leave, though it's clear there's still a piece of him in there. He clearly does care about them, and, I did like the way that was done, because, again, Enzo does have his humanity still, and you can tell why. He kind of wants to be the one to... I feel like he has this humanity for a certain reason. We just don't really know why he has it yet, and I feel like it might be to reel Damon back in and maybe give him a reality check, but we'll have to see the way that's going to go. But Damon then gives this huge speech to Stefan, and it's this really, really surprising thing that he says, which I definitely expected Damon to talk about Elena. I did not expect him to say the next thing that he says. He says straight out to Stefan, his life is over. His life has been over for a century and a half since he took it from him, and we know exactly what he's talking about. He's talking about the second that Stefan decided to turn into a vampire. Ever since then, Damon has been fucked, and he's not wrong. I mean, think about all the decisions that Damon has made. Think about everything that has happened to Damon. It's not all been Stefan's fault. I will say that. I don't think it's all been Stefan's fault, but Stefan has been directly involved with pretty much all of it, and Stefan was the one who forcefully convinced him to become a vampire. And from that moment on, Damon promised him an eternity of misery. And now it seems that Damon is continuing that eternity of misery. He was the one that went down that dark path. It wasn't Stefan. He was the one that did it. And he feels that he's going to, he has hell to pay pretty much. He is going to blame his brother for this. And you understand why. It didn't come across as Damon being an asshole, because you understand why Damon is feeling this way. If Stefan would have told him to become a vampire, he might have had a much better life. But the second they turned into one, we know how he became addicted to blood and everything, and that's what made him the way he is. So with that one line, Bonnie and Stefan have swapped roles. Now Bonnie is the one trying to convince Stefan to have hope, and because she slowly realized that Enzo is actually leaving clues for her, we find out. Which I thought this was interesting to see. I thought this was interesting we found out, but as Stefan tells her this time around, it feels like he may never forgive him. He doesn't know if he's going to get Damon back. He's hopeful, but he really doesn't know if that's actually going to happen. This might actually be the end for them, which it makes sense. Again, this is the final season. It makes sense why he feels that way. So we then see, we basically after this, Stefan drops her off. Bonnie continues to put two and two together. She remembers a story that Enzo read her from the Odyssey, a story that included wax and someone strapped to the mast of a ship. Similar to the way he'd arranged a female victim on the front of her car, it was a story about sirens, and we'll get into that in a second, but Damon and Enzo are then back on the hunt, this time finding themselves a murder-loving artist to feed to their beast, and as far as Damon's concerned, Enzo would be smart to flip his humanity switch. If he cares about nothing, the beast can see, you can see nothing. I think that was interesting to see, though. The beast can see nothing and therefore is less likely to go after the ones you love. That's the reason why he turned off his humanity switch, apparently, because he doesn't want the beast to come after his loved ones. He's really doing it to protect them, but obviously he basically has put on this facade where he's going to blame them for everything, and I like the way that we found this out. I thought overall it shows that how much Damon has changed, and it showed that overall he's not just doing it for his own benefit, he's doing it to help his brother. He really does care about Stefan, but unfortunately because of this change, he may never be able to be the same, have that same bond that he had with his brother all those years ago, and it's honestly very sad. So we then see a Lark, his proposal for Caroline after they have successfully taking care of Virginia's body. He suggests that he actually move in so they can better protect the girls, because obviously the girls aren't safe. Caroline objects and then realizes that Alaric's plan involves Caroline moving in with Stefan, and she doesn't really know how she feels about that. She feels it'll put them both in Mystic Falls and close to protect the girls, and naturally, Stefan's game, obviously. Stefan is on board with this, we see. But is this really the best thing to do? I don't really know. We'll have to see. But Stefan then writes to Elena, tells her that he's worried he's lost his brother. All he can hope is that there's one final silver of humanity holding on without Damon. And there is, of course. We actually see inside Damon's mind. We relived the first time he saw Elena when he mistook her for Catherine in the road. And as Damon tells her, he doesn't know how much longer he can fight. And, thankfully, Stefan's actually not giving up on him. He puts it that maybe tomorrow will be better, and I like that we end this on a hopeful note. I like that this wasn't completely hopeless. There is definitely still hope there, but we don't know if he'll actually be able to save them. So Bonnie calls Alaric to get his opinion on her Siren theory, seeing how Sirens use mind control to lure victims to death and are considered messengers of the devil. He thinks it's likely her theory could be correct. After all, at this point, anything could be real. So Enzo and Damon could actually be bewitched by a Siren, and Damon and Enzo then turn to find a woman who has emerged from the pit of bloody water. The Siren is finally full, but we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know who this woman is. We don't know what's going to happen there, but that is the way the episode ends. Really good start overall. Let's just get into this episode and what I think is going to happen in this final season overall. So like I said, I was really impressed with this episode. I didn't expect much from it, but it really did impress me. I like the way we're really getting into Stefan and Damon's relationship. Stefan feels that Damon's gone, that, Damon has no humanity left in him. He's gotten rid of it all, and that there's no way that he's going to get that bond back, when in reality, Damon is doing it to protect Stefan. The problem is he can't ever really reveal that because, one, his humanity's gone. Two, the more, blind he seems and the more less humane he seems, the less likely it is for the Beast to come after his family. And I like the way we have that thread of the Beast, and I like the selfless decision that Damon's making. He's going to put himself through misery just to save his loved ones, and I really do love the way it's going. I think that's going to be very interesting. Enzo's going to get screwed over. Enzo's definitely going to get screwed over. I don't see things going well for Enzo in this situation. We'll have to see. But the fact he hasn't turned off his humanity, and now knowing why Damon has, definitely he's going to either be forced to do it or someone's going to die. I mean, anyone can die this season. That's something I love. Since this is the final season, anybody can die. And yes, people died last season. There was like Mary Louise, there was like, Nora, but who the fuck cared about them? I didn't. I certainly didn't care about them. I started to care a little bit, but I don't care in the extent of these characters. These are characters we've been with since the beginning. All the characters left in the show we've been with since the beginning, except for Enzo, but almost all the characters we've seen, we have been with them since the beginning. So obviously we want to see them live, we see. Let's talk about the Siren though, because I don't really know what's going to happen with this Siren. What is the Siren's goal? What is she really going to do, and what's really going to happen with that, we don't really know at this point. But I think overall that's going to be very interesting as to what the Siren's goal really is, what she wants to do with them, and why she is coming after them. We don't really know what's happening with that, but it seems to be messengers of the devil, and we don't really know what's going to happen there. That's going to be interesting. I like that Damon does still have that shroud of humanity when he thinks of Elena. Even though he's saying Elena's dead to him, she clearly does still love her. He'll always love her, but again, there's that rumor that Elena could be coming back, and I don't know if that's actually going to come true, but we'll have to see. I think that's going to be interesting. It seems like Elena, that's the thing that's keeping him human. That's the thing that's reminding him why he's doing all this, and that's really the thing that remains kind of like his conscience. If he didn't have Elena, I feel like Damon wouldn't have as clear of a conscience as he did, and that's why he has the conscience that he does right now. This whole thing with Caroline moving in with Stefan, I don't know if this is going to work. I really don't. I think they think it's going to work, but I don't really know if it's going to work. We'll have to see. I don't really know where that's going to go. I did, like I said, like seeing Caroline in, one, her job as a news anchor, because we never saw that last season, like, ever, except for that one episode. But also her being a mother, I thought was also interesting to see how her relationship with Alaric is, and also what is her relation with Stefan really like. It seems very, very sexual. That's what it seems like to me. It seems like this is very much a friends with benefits situation. They're not actually together, but we'll have to see. I honestly don't really know what's going on there. And then Bonnie is the one I feel the worst for. Bonnie, I like that she is starting to have hope. I like that she's starting to see what's going on, and I'm hoping that they will be able to get Damon back. But again, we'll have to see. I like that this is the final season. I think it's definitely time to do that. Like I said, I think they're definitely running out of ideas, and I think by it being the final season, the stakes are so much higher. There's so much possibility, and there's only 16 episodes, which is amazing. I've always hated the Vampire Diaries as 22 episodes. I think 16 episodes is perfect for this season. I think it's exactly what they need to do, and I can't wait to see what ends up happening within these next 15 episodes. I am definitely on board with this season. I was surprised by how much I love this premiere, but I really did think this was a genuinely great premiere. I really did love the way this was done. I think what I wanted from last season, I think we're going to get this season. I really could see that happening. I really hope it doesn't let me down, but let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Loved your thoughts on it. Matt's not back yet. I know he's coming back. I don't know why he's coming back, but we'll have to see. That's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Loved your thoughts on it. Do you like the way that the season is going? Are you looking forward to the final season? Or do you just not care? I wouldn't be surprised. There are probably people who have tuned out by now. There aren't many people that are still watching the Vampire Diaries, believe it or not. I mean, I know some people, but there really aren't that many people. That's my review. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next, which will be for tonight's episode, The Exorcist, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.